What's up, hipsters? Blake back at it again, best stash in the game. And today I wanted to give you all another deck tech. It's almost kind of more of a deck idea, really. This isn't a deck that I have play tested or anything like that. But it's a deck that I've conceptually kind of come up with because I've saw this commander and I thought it was really interesting. And I wanted to figure out how to kind of maximize it or take a kind of unique route with something that I don't typically play, and that is Infect. And not only are we building around Infect today, we're building around Esper Infect, which usually green is involved in Infect. So, yeah, it should be a pretty interesting build. We'll go ahead and get into it. No cam today because it's a bit dark. I'm recording this a little later than I normally do. But, you know, still here. Still going at it. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into it. Today we're building around Kamiz Obscura Oculus. We'll go ahead and read the commander here. It's one of the new Precon Commanders from New Capenna. It's one generic white, blue, black for a 2/4 cephalid rogue. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. It connives, which means you draw a discard, and then if you discard a non-land, it puts a 1/1 counter on the creature. Then you choose another target attacking creature with lesser power. So that's after you connive. So presumably if they both attack and have the same power, you could connive one of them to make it bigger than the other and then give the other one double strike. So yeah, it's a pretty weird card, very unique. It's an Esper card that cares about attacking and attacking with multiple creatures. And it also cares about kind of a weird power balancing. And it gives you looting. So there's a lot going on here. It's got a lot of words on it. Really unique, interesting card. So kind of what my thought was is, how can you turn these creatures that are unblockable into actual effective threats or generate insane value with them? And what I kind of came up with was Infect, because in Commander, just like normal Magic, you die when you have 10 poison counters, or you take 10 infect damage, which is in the form of poison counters. So what that actually means is your power is basically quadrupled, right? Because instead of doing 40 damage, you only have to do 10 damage. So whenever you put these 1/1 counters with the connive ability onto an infect creature, it ends up, instead of being 1 extra damage from the +1 counter, it ends up being 4 extra damage effectively. And a lot of the infect creatures are just kind of generic idiots. They don't really have many abilities or many redeeming quantities outside of the fact that they have infect. So Kamiz helps them, get in without being blocked. So it's a pretty effective way of killing somebody with infect, I think. And if you have an infect creature that already has evasion on it, or some sort of creature that when it hits somebody you get some sort of value, then you can give that creature the double strike, and then that can kind of generate either a value engine or b an even more rapid kill. So yeah, this should be pretty interesting. I enabled some tags here. The only thing I put on here was just infect creatures, just to help kind of keep track of how many I got, and I ended up with 23. There's a few. I'm not running every single infect creature in these colors, just running the ones that I thought seemed feasible. So we'll kind of run through them real quick. Most of them don't have a lot of abilities, so this shouldn't take too long. Black Cleave Goblin. It's a 4-mana 2/1 with haste and infect. Haste is pretty good with our commander because it kind of can be a surprise attack. We play Kamiz, and if we're starting to get in with some infect creatures, but then we can play and then have 2 infect creatures attack the next turn, and so on. So even though this creature on its face is really, really bad, I think that this has enough redeeming qualities to make it good for our deck. Blighted Agent, a classic one. It's a 1 blue and a 1 generic for a 1/1 infect, and it's unblockable. So this is a good one for us to give double strike to, or if we have nothing better to do early on, we can connive on this to make it a little bigger and then give it double strike later to make it even more effective of a threat. Contagious Nim, this is just a 3-mana 2/2 with infect. We'll take that. That's a good enough rate for us. It's effectively, like I said, an 8/8 for 3 for us. Plus we can pump it or give it double strike. There's lots of things that can be done with this. Core Prowler, 4-mana 2/2 with infect. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, proliferate. Proliferate's actually really nice. Normally, I don't really like it with Infect strategy because if all you're proliferating is, an Infect counter on somebody, that's not really worth it. But we have some built-in +1 counter synergy with our commanders, so it can help us grow our creatures as well. And we do run a little bit of proliferate as just in case we start getting in early with Infect, but we can't reliably land any more Infect damage on people because, they have fogs or lots of removal, or they keep killing Kamiz, or, whatever. Sometimes whenever you're doing a combat-based strategy, it's good to have a backup plan. So proliferate is nice for us because it is good enough with our base strategy, and then it kind of can give us a little extra reach late game. Corpse Cur, 4 mana, 2/2 Infect. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature card with Infect from your graveyard to your hand. Excellent. We love that. A lot of our Infect creatures are bound to eat some removal. Flencermite? I don't even know. Flencermite, sure. 2 mana for a 1/1 with Infect and Lifelink. Good enough for 8. Lifelink is nice. We'll appreciate some life because we're probably going to catch some hate when people find out what we're up to. Flesh Eater Imp, 4 mana, 2/2 Flying Infect. You can sack a creature, and this gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Very effective threat here. This is a great creature to give double strike to. Definitely kill people out of nowhere with this. Hand of Praetors, 3 and a black for a 3/2 with Infect. Other creatures with Infect get +1/+1. So like I said earlier, that's effectively +4/+4. Whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So this also has the extra reach that we're looking for in the deck to, help get over the top and get the last few Infect counters on somebody. Acre Rats, 3 mana, 2/1 Infect. When it enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. Very nice, very effective. The poison counter on us obviously is irrelevant. Ichor Claw Mirror, 2 mana, 1/1 Infect. When it becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this is pretty effective at being the unblockable or the double strike because this thing is very annoying to block. Whatever it's blocking, it's going to first strike it and give it -3 and then do normal damage. And then, the creature almost certainly can't trade with it unless it was a 6/6. So, Ichor Claw Mirror is very effective. Lost Leonin, 2 mana, 2/1 Infect. So on rate Infect creature. We love to see that. Necropede, 2 mana, 1/1 Infect. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. This one almost didn't make the cut. This one's a bit lackluster, but I figured since it was 2 mana, it was nice enough that we could get it down nice and early before Kamiz. I think it's effective enough, and then it might randomly kill a utility creature or something if it does die. Phyrexian Crusader, this is one of the best ones. 1 black for a 2/2 first strike, pro red and white, and it has Infect. So this card is very nice to, give the double strike to or the unblockable. This thing's very annoying to block, and it's hard to block since it's pro 2 colors. Phyrexian Juggernaut, 6 mana, 5/5 Infect, attacks each turn if able. That's fine, we don't care. This can one-shot somebody with the double strike if somebody doesn't have a blocker for it. Or Infect, getting 5 Infect on somebody, potentially 6 is big game. Phyrexian Vat Mother, 2 black for a 4/5 with Infect. At the beginning of upkeep, you get a poison counter. That's irrelevant kind of for us. This is just a very good rate for an Infect creature, so we're happy to have it. Plague Mirror, 2 mana, 1/1 Infect, and you can tap to add a generic mana. This is nice. It can help ramp us in the early game if we need it. It's always good to have ramp and card draw on, or ramp and card advantage on cards that we already want to play in our strategies. So great to see that. Plague Stinger, 2 mana for a 1/1 Flying Infect. Nice to give this one double strike, obviously. Reaper of Sheoldred, 4 and a black for a 2/5 with Infect. When a source deals damage to Reaper of Sheoldred, the source's controller gets a poison counter. This one's not very good. This is one of the worst ones for sure, but it's good enough. Make the cut. If any of these are going to get cut, this would be the first one to go just because it's so expensive and doesn't directly do a lot of damage. Septic Rats, 3 mana, 2/2 Infect. When it attacks, if defending player is poisoned, it gets +1/+1. Very nice. We like to see that. It's effectively a 3/3 when it attacks, so it's going to deal 12 damage basically. Good one to give unblockable to. Skithrix, the Blight Dragon, 5 mana for a 4/4 Flying Infect. You can pay a black, and this gets haste until end of turn, and you can also pay black to regenerate this card. This card's a pretty good general on its own, pretty scary card. The haste is big game on this. Black usually doesn't get haste, and the rate on this card is already very, very good with flying and infect 4/4 for 5. And it even has protection with regenerate, so obvious include here, one of the best infect creatures in the format. Vector Asp, it's a 1-mana 1/1 that you can pay a black to give it infect. Good rate on the creature. We're totally fine with paying a black to give it infect. This is, since we can't play Glisten or Elf, this is the closest we can get, and we'll take it. Viral Drake, 4-mana 1/4 flying infect. You can pay 4 mana to proliferate. You can do that as many times as you want to. So once again, gives us that extra reach late game, as well as it can keep pumping our creatures that already have 1/1 counters on them. And it has flying, so it can poke in for a little infect itself. Last one, Whispering Spectre. 3 mana for a 1/1 flying infect. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, that player discards a card for each poison counter he or she has. This one's a little interesting because if they have enough poison counters on them where they're going to discard their whole hand, obviously you'll do that. But that also probably means that you probably want more infect creatures around because you're close to killing them. So it's kind of an interesting balance, but I think that this one is generally good enough. It's nice to have interaction like this. You'll usually strip somebody's hand with this when it hits them, so they won't be able to interact with your board, which is what we care about the most. All right, so that's the infect creatures. That's kind of the core of what we're doing. We also have a handful of other creatures that are interesting, some like the Cephalid Face Taker. It's a 2 and a blue for a 1/4. It can't be blocked. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have it become a copy of another target creature until end of turn, except it's a 1/4 and has this creature can't be blocked. So this can become, whatever infect creature that we have lying around. And this one's a pretty good one to give double strike to because it's already unblockable. So this one came in the Precon as well. So if you already have a Kamiz Precon lying around, then this one will be one you can already throw in the deck. We got the infect creatures again. Drana, Liberator of Malakir. This one's pretty interesting. It's a 3-mana flying first strike 2/3. Whenever it deals damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. Really nice, as it will give the unblockable creature the counter. The double strike creature will not get the counter before it does the normal strike. It will get it after first strike damage, obviously. But still, this is really nice. It'll give us a lot more 1/1 counters, a lot more things to proliferate with. Pumps our board, is an evasive creature on its own. So yeah, Drana seems like it would be a pretty decent fit here. Esper Sentinel, we're playing white, so Esper Sentinel seems like a no-brainer. It's a 1-mana 1/1. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X for X as this creature's power. We also can pretty reliably pump this if we need to with Kamiz and lots of other things like Drana. So most of the time, if I'm playing like blue or black with white, usually those colors are very good at drawing cards on their own. So Esper Sentinel isn't necessary, but in any decks that can sort of augment its power and make it bigger, then it becomes a lot more interesting. But you never really need that much of an excuse to play Esper Sentinel, obviously. Grateful Apparition, 1 and a white for a 1/1 flyer. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you proliferate. Normally I don't like this card in the other version of it, which we also have. Thrumming Bird, which is just the same card but blue. Normally I don't like them in sort of infecty decks, as they aren't infect creatures themselves, and once again, just adding 1 infect counter onto somebody is not really that big a game. But since we do put a good decent amount of +1/+1 counters around, and since we can pretty reliably give this thing double strike, so we get 2 proliferate triggers when we attack with this, it seems like it seems like a pretty good fit here. Looter Ilkor. It's a 2-mana 1/1 shadow. When it deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card, then discard a card. Very good one to give double strike to if we don't have a good infect creature to give it to. So good value creature here. More infect creatures. Shadow Mage Infiltrator, very similar card to the last. It's a 3-mana 1/3 with Fear. When it deals combat damage to a player, you just straight up draw a card. Once again, great one to give double strike to. And then that's kind of all the creatures that we're looking at. So we have about 5 or 6 non-infect creatures in the deck, but they all produce some sort of value. They all support the game plan or draw us cards. So yeah, that's the creature suite. We have a few sorceries here as well. Contentious Plan, 2 mana for a sorcery. You proliferate and you draw a card. Like we said earlier, normally I don't like proliferate cards just generically Infect decks, but they have a good home here. Damn, black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated and has an overload of 4, so you destroy all creatures for 4 mana. We don't want to play too many board wipes in this deck, but we do need a few since we are a creature deck, and you just got to have board wipes in your deck in case things get out of control. And this one at least is a utility card. You can use it just to kill whatever creature's getting in your way or being annoying. So most of the time you'll probably just cast this for 2 mana, but it's nice to have the backup plan of it being a board wipe. Demonic Tutor, it's a black deck. You run Demonic Tutor. Tezzeret's Gambit, 3 and a Phyrexian blue, so 3 mana plus 2 life basically. Draw 2 cards and proliferate. We'll take it. We need card draw. We want some proliferation, so Tezzeret's Gambit seems like a good fit here. All right, we have a decent number of instants here because we need to protect our board pretty reliably as we're a creature-based deck, but luckily we're in blue and white, so we can do that very well. Firstly, though, we have a pretty good finisher for us, a Chroma's Will. 3 and a white for an instant. Choose one. If you control a commander, you can choose both. Okay, here we go. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, double strike until end of turn. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors till end of turn. So this can be a devastating finisher that allows all of our infected creatures to get in with double strike and gain us a ton of life and be unblockable. Or it can protect our board from a board wipe in a pinch. But yeah, this pulls double duty. 4 mana is a lot for this effect, but every time I've ever cast this card, I felt really good about it. So yeah, Chroma's Will seems like a great fit for here since we're a creature deck. An offer you can't refuse. 1 blue for an instant. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller gets 2 treasure tokens. So I've been playing this card a lot lately, as I was originally really down on it when I first read it, and I was like, maybe it has potential, and I've been playing it in several decks now. And this card has never been bad for me. This card has overperformed every time. Turns out when you stop the thing that you want to stop, 2 treasure tokens, who cares? They get 2 of their whatever mana they spent on the real scary thing back. It's a non-conditional counter spell, so it's going to stop it no matter what. So yeah, I've been nothing but impressed with this card. I think it's excellent, and most of the things we care about in this deck are non-creature spells because that's what's going to kill Kamiz or kill our infect creatures or board wipe or whatever. So yeah, this card is excellent. Don't sleep on it. It's just like Tybalt's Trickery. Tybalt's Trickery is good because it's red, and red doesn't get access to counter spells, but it's also good because you stop the thing that you really want to stop. They might get something else that's annoying if you're unlucky, but that you'll take that if it's not going to kill you or make you lose the game. So that's basically the same reason that I like offer you can't refuse. But the downside of this card is even less than Tybalt's Trickery by a lot. So try this card out, please. It's very, very good. Anguish Unmaking, 1 black-white for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. Exile is really big here. It pulls a lot of the weight of this card. Being able to get rid of the thing that's bothering you permanently, never have to worry about it again. And 3 mana, it's kind of a catch-all removal spell. I don't want to run too many removal spells in this deck, but the ones I do, I want them to hit whatever I have. Hit whatever my opponents have that's a problem. Then we have Arcane Denial, one of my favorite counter spells in the format. 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Its controller may draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next upkeep, and then you also may draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. So even though your opponent goes up a card in the exchange, you stop the thing that you need to stop, and you get your card back, which is very important. If just one of your opponents going +1 cards is not really that big a deal compared to you getting your card back. So, yeah, Arcane Denial, excellent counter spell. And then we have just straight up counter spell. Not going to bother reading that. It just counters a spell. Cyclonic Rift. It's a blue deck, so we run this. One of the few board wipes that doesn't wipe our board. 1 of the blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. 7, you return all of them. Kind of insane. We need it here for this deck. We need board wipes, and this is the best one that we could play. Doan's Veto. 1 in a blue for an instant. Can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. Once again, non-creature spells are what we're mostly worried about. Generous Gift, 2 and a white, instant, destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 green elephant. Like I said, the removal that we do run, we want it to be catch-all, so This is pretty catch-all. Swords to Plowshares, 1 mana for an instant. Exile target creature. Its control gains life equal to its power. This one isn't catch-all, but it's kind of unmatched in terms of creature removal. Nothing is better than this in the format in terms of creature removal. So we do need some creature removal, so we'll take it. Tainted Strike, 1 black mana for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Infect until end of turn. This one's pretty interesting, as most of our creatures are Infect. Sometimes in a pinch we might need to give Kamiz Infect or one of our other utility creatures Infect if we need to push a little bit more damage. But generally we'll probably look to put this on one of our opponent's creatures' threats after they, one of our opponents attacks another opponent with a Sun Titan or something, and then the other opponent declares no blocks. You can Tainted Strike their Sun Titan, and then that Sun Titan will deal 7 Infect damage to them, which is what we care about, and that will do a lot of the work for us for just 1 black mana. So typically we won't use this on our creatures, we'll use it on our opponent's creatures. Teferi's Protection, 2 and a white for an instant. You don't exist till your next turn. Yeah, it's just a good catch-all protection spell, and we really need to protect our board, protect our life total from hate. So yeah, Teferi's Protection seems like a no-brainer here. Even though we're a pretty low to the ground deck, we still want a decent amount of mana ramp, as I anticipate Kamiz will die quite a bit, and we do really need Kamiz for a lot of our game plan. So we do run quite a bit of mana ramp, and some of our Infect creatures are a little off rate, like 5/5s for 6 and stuff like that. So we do need to get up there, probably sooner rather than later, because we are kind of an aggro deck. So we have the suite of normal signets: Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, Dimir Signet, and then Orzhov Signet. We have the Talisman suite of Talisman of Dominance, Hierarchy, and Progress. We have Felwar Stone. It's a 2 mana untapped mana rock. It produces colored mana. Usually this will produce us at least 2 of our colors, which is what we care about. Mind Stone, great mana rock. We can cycle it whenever we need to get a new card later on in the game. Soul Ring, because Soul Ring. And then Thought Vessel is kind of the last mana rock here. The no max hand size is pretty irrelevant. It's just the most useful effect I could find on a 2 mana rock. Sometimes we might draw some extra cards that we don't want to discard, but we don't have any extra usages for like a Prismatic Lens or anything like that. So yeah, this card seems like it is the best fit for the last mana rock that we should run. And then we have a few equipment here. We have Grafted Exoskeleton. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. It's for 4 mana. And then when it becomes unattached from a permanent, you sack the permanent and it equips for 2. So this is nice to put on Kamiz or one of our utility creatures that's already unblockable, like I was talking about earlier. But even just kind of the +2/+2 on its face, if we put that already on an Infect creature, we're pretty happy with that, I would say. So yeah, Grafted Exoskeleton is just a little extra for the few things we have lying around that don't have Infect. This one I could see getting cut just for another Infect creature, but this was kind of my concession because none of the other infected creatures I wanted to run, so this is kind of my fill-in for another Infect creature. Lightning Greaves, 2 mana for an equipment, 0 to equip. A creature has haste and shroud. This card is a little tricky in this deck, as once we give the creature shroud, we can't target it with Kamiz's ability, but we have plenty of evasive creatures and flyers and just big idiots that sometimes we can surprise people with on an empty board, that I feel like the haste is good enough here. So I like Lightning Greaves in this deck, even though it's kind of a non-bow with Kamiz. But it could play out bad, and I could cut that. But for now, I like it here. Swiftfoot Boots, though, this one is a no-brainer. Same card, but it equips for 1 and gives hexproof instead of shroud. So this one we can still use Kamiz's abilities on the creatures. So this one's definitely a no-brainer. This one will definitely stay, but I think Lightning Greaves still makes the cut here. And then the last artifact in this section is Sword of Truth and Justice. It's a 3 mana artifact equipment that equips for 2, +2/+2, and protection from white and blue. It gives the creature, when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, then you proliferate. Really nice to put on our double strike creature. Really nice to get extra proliferate if we have some 1/1 counters lying around and stuff like that. So This card pulls a lot of work in this deck, I think. The only annoying thing is it gives pro white, so it makes, once again, Kamiz's targeting with his ability a little weird. But we'll probably just throw this on one of our already evasive creatures or something. So, yeah, I think Truth and Justice is still good enough here. Okay, we have a few enchantments here. Corrupted Conscious, 3 blue for an aura, enchanted creature. You control enchanted creature, and the creature gets Infect. Good for removing a blocker out of the way. Good for getting getting rid of one of our opponent's threats and getting it for ourselves, giving it Infect so it falls into our strategy. Seems like a no-brainer here. It's good removal and it's good synergy for our deck. Duelist Heritage. This is an interesting one. 2 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures attack, you may give target attacking creature double strike until end of turn. So it allows us to give our creature that we connive on double strike. It allows us to give our opponent's creatures double strike. Pretty cool card. I think it's pretty clever inclusion here. In the decks that I've ran this in, it's been hard to find slots in decks nowadays for cards like this. But the decks that I've ran this in, I've always been pretty happy and impressed with it. It's a pretty cute political tool as well. Phyrexia, 1 and a black for an aura, enchant creature has Infect. So this basically applies for all the same things that Tainted Strike does. We use it in essentially the same way. We can't really surprise people quite as much with this card, but it basically pulls the same thing. We generally want to put it on a non-infect evasive creature that we have, like a Thrumming Bird or whatever, or we can put it on our opponent's creatures to make it very annoying for our other opponents. And I'm sure you can work out some pretty good political deals, like if the player to your left has a creature that is evasive and can get in on one of your other opponents, and you just can be like, hey, we can kill this player. If you want to work with me, I can give your creature Infect, and then we can kill that guy. And a lot of times, I'm sure that they'll agree to that. And then lastly, we have Reconnaissance Mission, 2 blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, or you can cycle it for 2 mana. Always love this card in creature combat-based decks. There could be a world where it might be worth cutting some of these like Infect synergy cards that give Infect, like Phyrexia and Corrupted Conscience, and maybe some of these other cards. There could be a world where we cut them and run more effects like this, like Coastal Piracy and Bident of Thassa and stuff. As we can definitely run out of cards, as you've seen so far, we don't have a ton of like card draw. We're pretty low to the ground, and we try to stay aggro and kill people. But if that's how it plays out, then definitely I would consider those. I didn't put them in the sideboard, as I figured I would just mention them here. But yeah, there's definitely a world where if this card is an overperformer and is good enough to warrant multiple copies of, then there are similar, almost identical copies of this card you can put in the deck. So keep that in mind when you play test this. All right, in the land section, we're only running 35 lands. Like I said, we're a pretty aggro deck. We don't need a ton of mana, but we still want to run a decent number, as Kamiz is likely to die once or twice. This is essentially the optimal mana base I would have here. Lots of fixing lands. We don't really need very many utility lands. There's not really that many that kind of work with our strategy, but I'll go over the few that I have here. Inkmoth Nexus taps for 1 colorless mana, or you can pay 1 and it becomes a 1/1 flying Infect creature. It's still a land, so this can be kind of an added threat to our board, kind of in the land slot. So if our board gets wiped or something, we can surprise animate this on our next turn and get in there. So yep, it works really well with our strategy. We also have Karn's Bastion. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate. Once again, proliferate, nice in our deck, gives us a little extra reach, and it's only on a land, so it's not really taking up a real deck slot or anything like that. We're running the Odawara and the kind of other lands in the Kawigama Neon Dynasty rare slot, the channel lands. This one's the blue one. You can pay 3 and a blue to discard it, and you get a bounce, basically whatever permanent you want to bounce, except for lands. So yep, really nice utility. It just replaces an island, no big deal. And then we also have Rogue's Passage for generic. It taps for a generic mana, or you can pay 4 and tap it to make target creature unblockable this turn. just a little extra redundancy in case things go south on our game plan. And then we also have the black channel and Takenuma. You pay 3 in black on this one to discard it, mill 3 cards, and then you return a creature planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. Most of the time, these utility discard channel lands, we're just gonna play them as lands. But you know, if we're just replacing like a swamp or an island here, because we don't really need very many basics in this deck, we don't have any way to fetch basics or anything. But we do want a few in here just in case. Then yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to run these instead of those, as they just give us a little extra utility. So yeah, that's the core of the deck. Pretty quick one here. Just wanted to do a quick rundown of this deck idea that I've kind of been brewing in my head. I'm not sure if I'm going to build it, but figured maybe I'd throw the idea out there for one of you, as it's something I've kind of been thinking about. And then I have a few more cards to kind of consider for this deck. These are cards that kind of cut at the end. Like I said, you could run more coastal piracy effects like Reconnaissance Mission. I also have Change of Plans. This is an interesting one that came in the Precon. It's X1 and a blue for an instant. Each of up to X target creatures you control connive. You may have any number of them phase out. So you can use this as kind of a small board pump / filtering card, or you can use this as a board protection, which is what you will mostly use this as. It's a bit mana intensive for this deck, but I could definitely see running it, as it kind of pulls double duty here. It gives us extra ways to put 1/1 counters on our creatures that we can then proliferate. It also, protects our board from removal and stuff. And you don't even have to go the full Monty and protect your whole board. If somebody just is being annoying and keeps trying to kill Kamiz, then you could just pay 3 mana into this and just phase that out and connive once or whatever. So pretty cool utility card. I like the idea of this card. And it comes in the Precon, so if you already had the Precon lying around, then, this might be one to try out. Inexorable Tide, 3 blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. So this gives us a lot of extra reach, like I was talking about earlier. Problem is this is coming down pretty late in the game when we've already kind of mostly done our thing. So you probably won't have a lot of cards lying around in our hand to just use this effectively. That being said, pretty cool card. It's always been kind of a card that's been close to my heart. Always thought this card was really cool, really interesting. But I think it's a bit too expensive for this deck, but I could see it. So yeah, interesting one for sure. And lastly, we got Wonder here. It's a 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. As long as it's in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have flying. This one seems really good for our deck, as it just makes it really easy for all of our creatures to get in. We don't have to worry about making this or that unblockable. We just give our best thing, double strike, and move on. Problem with this card is that, and most cards there's a whole cycle of these, but most of these, people like to throw anger, especially into like red, just any red deck. And I don't think these cards are good unless you can very reliably put them into your graveyard, aka mill, discard, sacrifice sort of effects. Because most of the time, if this card's going to be a big problem for your opponent, and your goal is to just play it out and block with it, your opponents just aren't going to attack into it. They're just going to leave it sit there or whatever and figure some other way around things and just wipe your board all at once instead of having to worry about it. Or they'll just hang on to their, graveyard hate, or look for their graveyard hate when they see this thing just sitting out there waiting to go to the graveyard. So, basically, if you're putting the choice kind of in your opponent's hands of whether this goes to the graveyard or not, then I wouldn't play this sort of effect, this anger, filth, this whole cycle, brawn, all those. So for me, whenever you want to play this card, you really reliably have to do that. That being said, if there is a build here that you do where you do a lot like mill, self-discard with connive and stuff like that, if you add a lot more of that in the deck, then I could see running Wonder. But just as it is with just our commander doing connive and then 1 or 2 other random cards maybe giving us some discard synergy, I don't see it. It seems a bit unreliable, because if we already have Kamiz in play, then we already have, an evasive sort of threat going on, so we don't really need Wonder as much at that point. So that's kind of my thought on the card. But yeah, that's the deck. Let me know what you think. Give me a shout out. Tell me what you'd like to see next, if there's any commanders that you've been thinking about or strategies that you want brewed around. I'm all ears. I like trying new things, building decks for me, building decks for other people, whatever. I'm a brewer at heart, so appreciate y'all being here. Thanks so much for watching. Y'all have a great day. Do all the algorithm stuff, comment, sub. Peace.